Welcome to the Limited Lorecast, where we talk about Lorcana in its limited formats of sealed and draft. I'm your host, Jake, and joining me as co-host is my good friend, Anthony. Anthony, how are you doing today?
Hi everyone, doing great. Very excited to be talking about Lorcana.
Yeah, definitely. So here's a little backstory for our audience. Anthony and I have been friends for over 20 years now, which is crazy. So we had met each other when Halo came out, and back in the day, we also played Smash Brothers. And do you remember how far you got in Halo 2 when it went online?
Yeah, they had like the moons and everything, and I even tried to do game battles where they had like online tournaments and everything. But nothing was as fun as like when we all got together and did like a LAN party.
Yeah, I'm sure, because you were clicking heads and kicking our ass like nonstop. You're so good.
I did love that game.
Yeah. And so, from playing games like Halo, Smash Brothers, I don't remember if we were able to play Dota back in the day. But we ended up transitioning to play these sort of Euro board games like Settlers of Catan, Ticket to Ride, and these 3 games like Dominion, Thunderstone, and Race for the Galaxy were kind of like deck building board games when you think about it.
Yeah, 100%. Like this definitely, like, understanding these board games and the concept really helped me, I guess, like trading card games and like all that stuff. So it's definitely a good gateway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So back to sort of Dominion, Thunderstone, Race for the Galaxy, these sort of board games where people can sort of show up and then build the deck on the spot. Like, honestly, that sounds like Limited to me, So
Yeah, 100%.
Then from there, years later, we used to play this game called Heroes of the Storm, and we still do. Big shout out to our good friend who's kind of like the Nick Fury of our group, Josh. What do you think about it?
That's true.
He's like the ultimate gamer that brought us together, ultimate friend. So shout out to Josh. Hope to get you on here too.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely like a mastermind, so it would be definitely great to have him on here.
Absolutely. So I wanted to get into the history of our trading card game backgrounds. And honestly, for me, I didn't really play too many TCGs. I dabbled in a little Magic with you guys. You guys had tried to teach me, and I was like, this is a lot. I remember collecting Yu-Gi-Oh for a little bit and playing Hearthstone for a bit. And who doesn't have like Pokemon cards? But I've never really gotten into sort of these trading card games until Lorcana. So I wanted to ask, what was your history getting into TCGs?
For me, it was Pokemon was the first one. I definitely collected the cards and everything. And at Toys R Us, they used to have these competition where you can get like the badges, like from each place. So you could go there and play. So I even built my own decks actually in Pokemon, back when they had it. After the Pokemon, I actually played Magic, I think in high school a little bit, when Josh actually introduced it to us. And I remember we tried playing Constructed and everything, and we went to a couple tournaments where I got wrecked. And that kind of dissuaded me, I guess, from continuing down that career.
Sort of like that eye-opening moment when you're like, oh.
Yeah, like, oh, someone can win in 2 turns using this crazy combo. Like, okay, not fun. But then, yeah, then after that, I think I played some Yu-Gi-Oh for a little while when it came out. And also tried to play that a little bit competitively. I think every kind of trading card game I like started, I did try to play a little bit competitively, but I never like continued down the path until more recently. Yeah.
So now let's talk about what got us into Lorcana.
So it was actually my cousin Alexis, who he still plays Lorcana. We used to play a lot of Magic together, and then he told me about this like new Disney trading card game that came out. He said now's the perfect time to get in because it's so new. I was like kind of like looking at the cards a little bit, like didn't really like start. But then when he told me that they were starting to do draft, and since I love the idea of drafting, like I decided to join him to like watch him draft and like watch him play sealed. And then after that, I was like, okay, I like the concept. It reminds me a little bit of Magic. and then I can draft in it, so it's perfect. So I just started playing, and then it's all because of him. Yeah.
Shout out to Alexis, and I remember him really loving Thunderstone too, so shout out to that. Yeah. And yeah, so for me, and I've told you this before, but just so everyone knows, so initially, my future brother-in-law had sort of messaged our friend group and just started blasting our chat, just being like, everyone needs to buy Lorcana right now. Check out this long-winded video, get into it. And immediately I was like, no, there's no way, because I know how these TCGs work. They get you sucked in, there are new cards all the time, and it can be overwhelming, even though it could be a lot of fun. And so I ended up getting him as my Secret Santa that year. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? Am I really going to research, investigate, and see if I can buy him like a particular card for a deck that he wants to get? And so I sort of secretly tried to get that information from him by asking him sort of hidden questions like, hey, what's this? What's that? And eventually he said, hey, you can actually try Pixelborn, which is sort of Lorcana online. So big shout out to Pavel. I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly, but Pavel, the creator of Pixelborn. If it weren't for you creating Pixelborn, I would have never tried Lorcana, and I would have never gotten into it at all. So first, I'd like to blame my brother-in-law for being my Secret Santa and eventually leading me to the Lorcana path, but also Pavel especially for creating Pixelborn, which, was the thing that got, I think, a lot of people into the game.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So people might be asking themselves, what is the limited format? And I think to better understand limited versus the standard format, which is called constructed, it's important to understand, in constructed, players build a deck size at a minimum of 60 cards. You're allowed 2 ink colors only, and you can hold a maximum of 4 copies of the same card. Now, these decks are pre-built or pre-constructed before an event, but limited is a bit different. Instead of building a deck ahead of time, players show up and build decks on the spot. And these deck sizes can be as minimum as 40 cards. You can choose any color of ink, you're not just limited to 2, and you're allowed unlimited copies of the same card. Now, there are 2 types of limited formats, sealed and draft. And at least those are the 2 main ones, because as I later found out, there is a limited starter deck type. But we're just going to focus on sealed and draft. So for sealed limited games, players are given 6 booster packs, and they hold all the 72 cards, they open them all at once, and then they cut essentially 32 cards to build the best deck that they can. But for draft, you're given 4 booster packs only, which means you're cutting 8 cards, and everyone takes 1 pack, and they simultaneously open the pack, choose 1 card, and pass the remaining cards to their left. Now, they keep doing this until they've run out of all the cards in that pack, and then they repeat the process by opening the next pack and then passing the remaining cards to the right. So it's kind of like a back and forth until all cards are chosen, like a draft. So, and I think like this style of limited format is very dynamic and very interesting. And it's kind of the limited one I think we both kind of prefer, just to add a little more spice to the limited format. But I still enjoy sealed, especially at the beginning of a chapter, because it's always nice to keep the cards you have. But I do think draft is more dynamic. So
Yeah, no, it's the same for me. Like sealed definitely for like 1 or 2 times at the beginning of a chapter, and then I'm all about drafting all the way. Just because the act of like seeing the cards, picking, having to choose one over the other, and then knowing that the cards you give to the person to your left or right, like they're gonna get whatever you've left behind. Like, I love the strategy that comes from that.
Yeah, and definitely, there is something to playing sealed, and then you see like every card out there, and then you kind of just build the best that you can, right? But sometimes that can feel like a little defeating. I remember I played a few games in sealed where I saw all the cards I had, and I was like, oh, I am missing a lot of good essential cards. And I was like, oh man, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. Or in draft where you might have been able to pull it in that way. And so, yeah, there is something, it's like, I like sealed first and then draft. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. But yeah.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a high variance in sealed. Yeah, but like still, like there's a high variance in sealed, but it is also like how you build the decks, right? Like, do you want to be on curve, and like, like the cards you choose for your sealed deck are important. And the good thing I like about sealed compared to draft though is you have more options, right? Because you get 72 cards and you have to cut 32. Like, I like that. In draft, it would be nice if we had like more cuts to make if possible. But yeah, I still prefer draft. But
yeah, that's actually a good point. I never really thought of it that way. In my mind, sometimes 32 cards to cut is a lot more than 8 cards to cut. But yeah, that's a really good point. Definitely more options to work with. So leads us to the next question: why create a channel for limited? And as we may have mentioned before, we love this format. I think it kind of reminds me back to playing those board games with you guys, Dominion, Thunderstone, Race to the Galaxy. Everyone starts from a base level, and not that constructed isn't fun, but sometimes you can feel like your money depleting with each new meta shift, like as the game continues, and you're looking for 4 copies of like Ursula Deceiver or A Whole New World, or it's like there's something to that can be a bit overwhelming. So for me, there's a great appeal to just showing up. It's still competitive, but not hyper competitive, and you try to build the best deck that you can.
Yep, and you also get to play cards that you would normally never play in constructed. Like constructed, you're always going to see the same number of cards, but in limited, like you'll play some of those weaker characters, which is nice. I think it's a nice change up.
Yeah, definitely. There's something special about limited. Think of all the cards that you never see in a set ever, and they're kind of like the unsung heroes of this format. So, and especially all the artists and the people that go into working like a TCG. I mean, to us, it's just a bunch of cardboard, right? But to shout out to all the unsung heroes out there, we're kind of representing you guys in limited. So,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Also, another reason why we decided to create sort of this channel for limited is that we noticed there wasn't too much content out there, and we kind of wanted to help contribute to that community. So with that said, wanted to give some shout outs to the people who I think had helped us along the way. Pavel, of course, for Pixelborn, but big shout out to Nives Nerd Corner for Lorcana content in general. But I remember watching his videos. I think they led to that tabletop simulator, right? Of draft.
Yes, the first draft for Lorcana.
Yeah, which is crazy. I know, and we used it. It worked. It worked for us. Yeah. So shout out to Nives. I know he's still, pumping out that content. So definitely check him out. Shout out to Frank Karsten. There was a particular article that we had used for, I think, my first limited game in Lorcana, and it sort of broke down the curve, what you're looking for, cards to sort of consider, and he gave like tier lists of those cards, and that was extremely helpful. It did lead to you and I being sort of the finalists of that tournament, right?
Yeah.
And I just like barely won at the end. It was a 2-1 at the end there, so.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like, definitely, like I was so happy that both of us, like, we had a nice group of like 4 or 5 people, and then we made it to the end. And definitely that article helped me in like sometimes making a tough decision between like one card or the other. Just hearing, I think, his viewpoints on why he compared one card over the other. That was very nice, and I'm glad he created that article.
Yeah, so big shout out to Frank. Definitely check him out, and a huge shout out to Nick. I believe he coded the randomized.ink, which, again, back shout out to Nives, because Nives showed me Randomize Ink on his YouTube channel. And in Randomize Ink, it's essentially sort of like a card generator, so then people can play that limited format of both sealed and draft. So huge shout out to all these people. Check the links below, check out their socials, and show them some love. Let them know that the Limited Lorecast sent you. And yeah, big shout out to them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, thank you for everyone that did all this, because being able to play Pixelborn, I think for us too, like the great thing is Nick for creating Randomize.ink, is I love drafting, and Tabletop Simulator was nice, but having the Randomize.ink to like for us to just draft together and be able to see the cards, and then being able to just create the link on Dreamboard.ink and then just import it to Pixelborn and play. Like it's amazing. It just makes it a really great experience to doing like online drafts.
Yeah, I agree. And Randomize Ink, just the creation of that, and you and I sort of talking to each other throughout the games that we had, kind of led to us thinking, hey, maybe we could do this. Maybe we should make a channel. So
yeah, that's true, right? Yeah,
just like the nail in the coffin. That was like, yo, let's do it.
Yeah.
As far as plans for this channel or / podcast, honestly, we hope to have some pre-release initial set impressions. So chapter 4 is about to come out May 17th. Hoping that this video can come out before then. But yeah, just before every chapter, we hope to release something, assuming that Ravensburger can get those cards to us as soon as possible and that our schedules can line up and all that stuff. But that's one type of video that we're hoping to release each chapter. And then we'd like to follow up post-release to review, what our initial impressions were, how may they have changed after playing a few games. And then from there, maybe create an analysis or a tier list of every single card, which it was definitely fun for us to do that on chapter 3 together. And hopefully we can post something for chapter 4. And finally, creating some gameplay or group analysis while doing like our own drafts or sealed tournaments. And yeah, that's pretty much the plan for the podcast / channel.
Yeah, and I definitely think like when me and you first started like looking into limited and like playing it and like kind of preparing for that tournament, like we were looking online on YouTube for that content of like, is anybody doing like analysis of cards, at least in terms of limited, right? I think I've seen it a little bit for constructed, and I've seen people talk a little bit about some sets, but not like as much content as I would want to see. So I think it's great that we're we're doing this to talk about all the cards in a like a limited and sealed perspective. So I think that'll definitely be really nice.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people I listen to, they're usually talking about these cards, and those cards are crazy. But it is primarily in constructed. But yeah, just another way for us to sort of shout out to the unsung heroes, all the artists, all the people working. We just wanted a little more limited content out there, and hopefully there are others out there like us who enjoy this. So thank you everyone for taking the time to check us out and listen to this podcast / channel. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and subscribe so we can continue to bring you more limited content like this. And hit the bell icon so you can be notified when new content arrives. And I gotta stop saying content so many times, I'll probably re-record this part. So, all right. So until next time, this has been Jake
and Anthony.
Keeping it limited.
Hey yo, let's go.
Until next time, this has been Jake
and Anthony.
Keeping it limited. We're gonna do one last one. Yeah. The last one. Here we go. We're gonna get this up. Until next time, this has been Jake
and Anthony.
Keeping it limited. I was waiting for you that time.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe there's a delay or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we need the words to come up like in karaoke.
Oh yeah. We'll
Things
just
start
karaoke it.
highlighting
That
over
makes
it, yeah.
sense. That'd be
Oh my
so
god,
good.
yeah, it would be perfect with this too, because it's like
Brilliant. I know. Yeah. We'll get there.